everything. I always wing everything. I've done this, I would spoke to the Historical Society probably, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. And we had a good time. So I'll do the same thing. My name is Paul Schlaefer, for those who don't know me. I grew up in Princeton. I worked in Princeton. I started out with the old paper route, and I worked at the high school during my high school days for 4 years. And then I started at Piggly Wiggly in August of 1973 and retired there June of 2018, 45 years. I worked my boss had stores in Amro, which I worked in. At one time I managed 2 stores for about 1.5 years because he couldn't find anybody else. So I was working 40 hours at each store. And then in Berlin, I worked there for 4 years. And then that's how I met my wife. And then when I came back to Princeton in '83, I brought her along. It was kind of it was an expensive trip, you know. Expensive trip. And I worked in the Red Granite and helped train over there and stuff too. So I know people still in Berlin still know. I remember people from 40 years ago. Before I go any farther, you guys are talking about, you know, the fundraising and all that stuff. Well, the other day I sat there and I don't know. I like, as some of you know, like John with the KCs, I kind of run the raffles and stuff there. 2019 on the Christmas parade, we did a fundraiser for Matt Schneider. I don't know if you remember that at all. We were set up in the old Sweats building, the hotel now. And all those people that are around that night, whatever, we made like $3,600. We gave away toys and gift cards. It was a big basket, you could say. And I was sitting there going, you know, and that was before COVID. And then when COVID hit, you know, things changed and whatever, and everybody's kind of getting back to the swing of things and stuff. And, you know, that might be a night maybe you guys and whatever take advantage of all those people. I mean, we made that kind of money in 2.5, 3 hours, plus somebody cooked out in front of us there too. So that's just something that I thought of the other day, you know, to take advantage of, you know. So anyhow, to get back to me, I graduated here in Princeton in 1973. My goal when I was in high school is I wasn't going to go to college unless it was going to help me with a job and make more money, you know. So the only time I ever had schooling after high school is I went to some night classes and whatever. And I just kind of winged that too. I learned that. I started out as a long-haired bag boy, and I ended up managing. I managed from 1979 to the end, so I managed for 40 years. The other day I was just thinking how many kids and how many people I've hired. You know,
that's what I was thinking. I see all those kids that were cashiering and stuff while you were there, and I just think of the opportunities you provided for all that.
If I take the other towns and stuff, I bet you I hired. I want to say about 550, 600 kids.
Wow.
You know, and that's in small towns, you know. And they all, people, in fact, the other night down by Keys, I was down at the ice bowl down there, and we reminisced with, there was before my former employees were there, and then about 3 more came in later, you know. And so, you know me, I'm kind of shy, I don't really say much. But so that was fun. So anyhow, I learned a lot. I learned just a ton of stuff. And then when I went to Berlin, you know, I went to Berlin to advance, to manage there. And, you know, now I'm going to a town, yeah, it's only 17 miles away. But, you know, I never did that. I went out and, you know, I didn't know anybody, didn't know any of the employees and everything like that. And, you know, so I had you know, I made a lot of mistakes, you know. But learned a lot of stuff and had a lot of fun. Them were my heydays before I got married too, so, you know. And Amro was the same way. And, you know, people don't think that, you know, there's a big difference with only being 17 miles away, Amro 30 miles away, Red Granite 25 miles away. But every town's got their personality, every town's got different ways of going. You get to Amro, you get to the college type stuff already, you know, because they're by Oshkosh, you know. Berlin was, you know, I was so used to working in Princeton on the holidays, the three holidays in the summer, you know, and Memorial Day was always our biggest week of the year. And then 4th of July would be second, but it all depends when it fell. you know. And then deer hunting would be like the third week, the busiest week. So in Berlin, my first Memorial Day, I worked over there. I was all gung-ho and going, okay. Well, Memorial Day Saturday afternoon came and there's nobody around. It's dead. No, well, they don't have the flea market. And everybody there goes to their little lakes, wherever, Silver Lake. I don't know, they're Huygen up in there or whatever. So it was just completely different. In fact, those weeks were probably about the same as the rest of the weeks, or even down a little bit. Where in Princeton, I mean, on a Saturday, we'd almost double from what we did. A lot they had to do on the weather and stuff there too. So that's just a little bit about what I do now. I kind of retired. My boss didn't want to throw any more money into the store. I was banged up. I mean, I had foot surgery. I got 3 rods in my foot, and foot and ankle are fused. I worked 3 years with that, and then my hip started going, and I'm going like, and I just feel that I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. And yeah, I wanted to buy the store when I was 40, but I was offered to me when I was 56 years old. Well, I talked to some of my supervisors and stuff, and I didn't have not one person said go for it, because I would have been, well, I'm 67 right now, and I would have still been digging out of, with all the loans and stuff, so it turned out to be a good move not to do that. And after I retired, I mean, I was having a hard time moving, but it took me about 6 months just to kind of wind down, because I just sat there and I go, I should be doing something, And then after I had my hip done, after COVID, had to wait through there, and then I turned 65 in there anyhow. Then, because 3 years ago I was walking with a walker, and I couldn't hardly do, I mean, I was just like, but once I had my hip done, then I started to be able to walk, and you guys probably see me trying to walk the streets, gimping around and whatever. And then, I started getting things back in, and I'm probably the best I have been now in 6 or 7 years, where, I'll go down to the track and walk because it's softer for my foot and stuff. And now one about last year, I think it was around Easter time, I was kind of thinking, I wish I could find a part-time job, but I can't be on my feet that long. And so I talked to a couple of people, and all of a sudden one Sunday I went and got a church bulletin, and on the back of the bulletin it says they wanted a driver for Meals on Wheels, Green Lake County. Well, I know Betty Bradley, so this day and age, I messaged her, and she says, yeah, she says, I'll bring an application. So I hadn't filled the application out for work I filled a few out when I was working at the store there, and I got some offers, but that was back when I was 2 or 3 years into the store when I was 20 years old. They wanted me, I could have went up to Wausau. I had people asking me, I didn't want to go that far and stuff. I could see the opportunity here in Princeton, because when that store was going and starting, I just sat there and I just go, you know what? I says, there's an opportunity here, and one of these days, and after a ball game, I remember after a softball game, after we've indulged in a few beers, I was sitting at the table and I says, you know what? One of these days we'll be managing that store. Yeah, well, Schlaefer, blah. Well, then wasn't long after that I got to Berlin and I managed there. Then I had a chance to come back here because the manager in Amro got his own business, and the manager here in Princeton was from Amro, so he went back to Amro. So I got a chance to come here. That was after I got married and stuff. So before we bought a house and stuff in Berlin, well, my boss kind of just said, well, let's just hang on and then you come to Princeton. And we bought our house in '83 and we're still in it. We were there before Quick Trip. Quick Trip came in '84. Gary Dean lived on the corner there, and all of a sudden one day the whole house and everything was going. And it's up on D, across from the dental office, where the dentist's office used to be. I said to Gary, I didn't think we were that bad neighbors that you had to pick up your house and go do it. But, so that's how far that went, So anyhow, so that's a little about me, and like we did the last time, if you guys wanna ask me some questions, and we'll go on that, and we'll have a little discussion, that's kind of the way I wanna do it. It's, like I said, my goal was to stay in Princeton, find a job. I didn't care if I made millions of dollars, whatever, I just wanna be happy, and a lot of my classmates from that year are still around this area. And so I guess I met my goal, and maybe went a little bit farther with it, and then Meals on Wheels, the first day I started with Meals on Wheels, I've been doing it over a year, about 15 months. I was supposed to go out with a gal, was supposed to go with me to show me whatever. Well, she ended up in the hospital, so they said, well, Paul, you want to give it a shot? I said, yeah. I knew every house, every place I had to go, everyone, because I go to Green Lake, pick stuff up, come back to Princeton. Except I didn't know quite where one person lived, but I called my buddy, and he showed me where it was, and I got through the route, and so, you know, it's more of a volunteer type thing. You make a few bucks, you get paid by the mileage, and you get a stipend, but, you know, you know.
It's a good thing.
It was
Yeah.
a perfect job.
Yeah.
Quite rewarding too.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, you gotta do a welfare check, it's a welfare check for people. I've already had called the ambulance, and I've already had, I stay there until we find, if something like today, somebody was not there, but, until we find them, we report in, and 95% of the time, everything's fine, just like everything else, But, and I've gone to people's houses after they don't care, well, you don't have to come out at night and do, yes, I'll do that, if you're not in a hurry, I maybe break a few of the rules a little bit and stuff, but, I mean, it's all for the good. And I guess, the other guy that did it, Cal Cap, I don't know if you know him, but he did it for like 9 years, and he worked at, Condon, that was his job, he retired, and he said, Paul, I told them if they didn't if it was for the good of the people, then I'll load my vehicle and put it in theirs, and I'll leave them. Rules, I always said, and even when I was managing, rules are made to be broken, if it's for the right thing.
They're just guideposts.
Yes, Vicky?
I want to say a statement first, and then a question. I want to tell you, Paul, that out of the 500 and 600 kids that you hired, you taught those young kids how to work, how to be respectful, how to do their job, be on time, and you did it with just such finesse, such goodwill, that those kids, most of them went on to be great human beings, and you were an integral part in Piggly Wiggly to do that.
Well, and it's the
And
parents,
I think-
it's the parents though too, it's the parents.
Well, I know, but
Yes,
you
and it
know,
was-
the first, when they're hitting that young age and they have no idea how to work, you taught them how to work.
Yep.
You taught them what responsibility at the workplace was. And that was, my son was right in there with them.
Yeah. Well, I
Right.
I let them do the high school stuff came first. I worked around the basketball, the football, the band, the play, whatever's going on, the prom. I mean, whatever's going on, because there again, we've all gone through high school. Maybe if we had a second chance, we would have done a little bit more. And it's the same thing with them. You only get a chance to do it once, and all of them, you can work, I guess you can work for whenever after that, so, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's fun to see them. Like I said, yeah, I stayed in my four corners. I had somebody working the Olympics out in Australia. I don't know if you remember Glenn Polfus.
Sure.
His wife tried out for the Regis show. They were on TV,
And she's still on.
Joe Krieger is the producer for the Utah Jazz. There's people that are all over. I mean, a lot of them went to the service. They've come back. Bernie Van Rossum came. He went to the service. He's back. He's going to take over coaching football, and he's got, now he's got time to do stuff. I mean, just some few of the examples. And Greg always says, Paul, weren't we the best, her son, weren't we the best, me and Moldy, and I said, what can I say about Goof? So, anybody got anything, any questions to it?
I
Yes.
do.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, two of them. If you can remember anything working with your dad at the printing office, and you were a part of the J.C.'s.
No, I was not.
You were not.
No, but I did do stuff for him.
Okay.
But I didn't join because I would belong, I started with the KC's and I was on the chamber for 30-some years. And I was, you know, working a lot, and I guess they were doing just great at that time. I was playing, then I was, you know, a single guy. I was playing like softball. I played, one of my buddies kept track how many games he played one year, 120 games of softball one year. You know, those guys after the we'd go play the tournament in Nashgoro, and I was pitcher. They would, after the game, they would get a case of beer and go under the tree, and they were gonna sit there. I went back to work with tears in my eyes going. But then Sunday afternoon, then if we were still in the tournament, well then I could go, I had a few beers then, but I was just been, you know, but work always came first, and I learned that from my dad and Mom. Because my dad ran the newspaper here in town, and he was the same way, and he was involved with the chamber. Most of you know that the food booth is named after him. That's his name up on top of there, Raymond Duke Schlaefer.
Your name's on there too, really.
Yep, yeah, my name's on there. I got a plaque on there for what I did for the flea market, taking care of the clubs and organizations every Saturday. And I'll tell you what, as far as I know, no matter what the weather was, no matter what was going on, there wasn't a group that lost a penny. I watched the weather, I watched everything, I prepared, there was, some years there was maybe 1 or 2 rainouts, other years you'd have 2 or 3 in a row, almost, you know, it wouldn't be bad. But I mean, and it was just, you know, hey, I was on salary since 1975, so it didn't matter if I worked 20 hours or I worked 80 hours. I got paid, and that's just the way it was. And I worked weekends. You know, I always said Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when you do more than half your business, that's when the management should be there. You know, and that's where our warehouse should be there. But that's a little different there. They were pretty much by Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, they were gone. You know. So.
I just wanted to thank you, Paul, when I first came to town. You always bent over backwards. You knew I loved that Powerade, and you'd always order in ahead, and you always went that extra mile, and that was very much appreciated.
Well, it makes the job fun. It makes the job fun, you know. And it was hard to remember names, but I always tried. If I didn't know somebody's name, you know, they, like Keith, I think I didn't know your name for probably a couple, it's kind of embarrassing, but maybe a couple of years, but we didn't have to know.
No.
I didn't have to, we just took care of the business.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd go, yeah, isn't that right? You know that guy. Because they would come back and say, my name is, I'm just using you.
Yeah.
My name is, Paul, my name is Keith. My name is Keith. Oh, okay. You know, one guy came back and he always said, you know, it's my birthday today. He says, I want you to remember that. And I swear, every year he'd come and he'd go, Paul, what is it today? I go, I said, you know, finally, I think the last time he says, I know it's your birthday around here sometime. He goes, but that, you know, I mean, simple. That don't cost a penny. It doesn't cost a penny to do that stuff. In fact, it's just like when I go on my Meals on Wheels, those people, some days, they had to pick me up. I mean, I have a guy that I have to let him know when the Cub games are on cable. And I gotta look at it. And so finally today, he says, how do you know when them games are, what channel they're on? So I showed him my phone and I said, oh! Because he's 92 years old. He does have a flip phone. I just hope sometimes he'll answer it, you know. And so, I mean, that just makes their day and it makes my day. When you just simple stuff like that, you know. So.
What about like growing up in Princeton and the downtown and stuff? What are some of those stories or memories you got about growing up here?
Well, like my dad worked down next to the bowling alley where that flower thing is there. I don't know what he does there that, I can't think of it.
Embellished?
Yeah, embellished, yeah, he's kind of a, I don't know, really don't know him. He's a hard guy to learn, find out who he is or whatever, but yeah, that used to be the printing office. In fact, was that last year, Vicki, they took
We
some,
have it all, we're cleaning all the blocks.
they took some of the equipment that was in the old stuff. My dad knew, they had a whole linotype, you know, that you had to set up all the stuff to print.
Yeah.
And they had a machine that folded all the newspapers and dried the ink, where you would light the match, and then the fire would go across like a wire, and then the papers would go through, and the ink would dry.
Wow.
He had some of the old machines. I think he was the only one that knew how to use them.
That's right.
You know, and that went on until I think about '69 or '70, and then that's when Berlin Journal bought out the paper. And then my dad would still do work here. He'd print holy cards, he'd print small jobs and stuff, but he'd go and get a lot of the advertising then for the newspaper, and then that was all done in Berlin, because then they had 7 newspapers at that time.
Okay.
And you know, with the cost and everything, and you know, but otherwise it was just him and I know, Mary, did you work down there?
Yeah.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, and Alice Kristovic,
Yeah.
and I remember in the summertime he'd get a college kid in. I know Father Mike Doro worked there, and I can't remember. He had some other guys in there, you know. And I remember, you know, my mom there was five of us at home, and we're all within less than 8 years. So there was my mom would go, you go down and see if your dad's got something for you to do. I tell you what, we would sweep that floor, I don't know how many times, go down the basement and move stuff around, you know, and stuff like that. But then we'd watch them and stuff, and then, you know, I remember when they had the crazy days. They always had crazy days, one day out of the year.
Wednesday.
We sat and we sold stuff. We had stuff out there. We would sell some of the pens and pads of paper and stuff that he had down there, and but yeah, Jim Wolf, that still is at the newspaper. He worked with my dad. They still are big friends. Jim's wife babysat us, you know. So that's when they lived where I think, well, where the tattoo place is. Remember that? And that used to be Dr. McNutt's office. They lived there at one time. I think they lived down like where Orlo Judas lives down there, or in Sharon. They lived down that way. And we're talking, I was in grade school then. I'm having a paper out in town then. Well, we wanted to get a paper out when we were 10, but you couldn't get it. I think you had to be 12 before you could get a street permit. And yeah, but I mean, we could have done it because we wanted money.
Right.
I mean, that's like back then, if we didn't mow lawns and if we didn't shovel snow, I mean, like on school days, if we didn't have snow, which was very seldom, we didn't have school.
Yeah.
We'd have somebody probably have a snow blower, and the rest of us would shovel, and we'd just go to houses and whatever. We might just get cookies, you know, whatever. But it's just get outside, and you know, and that kept us going. And then you'd get in a snowball fight, or you'd make forts and streams with the water running and all that stuff, and the tackle football in the snow, and we'd be playing basketball where the ball wouldn't even bounce on the, you know, because it was so cold out. But and you had to make up your own game. You had to make up your own stuff. Bike tag, you know. We think about the neighbors in our neighborhood. You know, we had the Sasinskis, the Malogics, us. England's were on the corner. Pulvermakers were just down a block. I mean, and then we had a dead-end street there, and that was the place to play football. I mean, it was football, then it was baseball, and then it was basketball. Whatever season it was, there was always something going, you know. And the neighbors, really, they were really good about things. I mean, there was times we were naughty, you know. And but nothing. And then if we did something wrong, then you admit it. And then if we broke something or whatever, then you know it's time to make it good. But you think about we had a lot of 15, 20 kids sometimes down there, you know. so the paper route, we did that, we got the papers the first time I started, well, we meet down by Henry Bernard's, down there, you know, Henry, and, that's where, is that Twigs now, or whatever it was? That's Twigs.
Yeah.
That's where, and then Henry's wife was insurance, she was next door. And that's where a depot was. Well, Henry would let us, he would let us come into the bar, we get down and wait for the truck to come from, I think it came from Fond du Lac. The papers came from Milwaukee, came to Fond du Lac, then they came here. And then sometimes if they were late, well, Henry was good enough to let us could stay in the bar and keep us warm. And otherwise we'd go by Catherine, but she was busy and you didn't wanna, Catherine was a very, very nice lady you ever wanna see. You didn't want her mad at you, you know, cause then, you know, I mean, that's not right. She didn't deserve it, you know. And then Henry would always be there if we were out of line, and Henry would say, okay, all he had to say is, that's enough, or whatever, you know. And of course, he had ice cream bars in there and pop for us and stuff too, you know. Otherwise, we'd run down to the drugstore, and that's when they had the old soda fountain down there and stuff, you know, and then we'd go in there. And then, of course, somebody across the street would whip a snowball, and then we'd have to throw a snowball back and all that stuff, you know. You know, because Henry had customers in there and stuff too, you know. But, and in the summertime too, you know, everybody was on their bikes, and, you know, the ball games we start the ball games at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By 3:30, we're down here because it was the afternoon journal. And there was 4 routes in town.
Did you have to collect the money?
Yes, yes, we had to collect the money. Yeah.
Any stories?
Well, there was the usuals. We learned at that time, and then we had to take the money to the bank and we paid the bill with you know, the money. And so Doris Zick was working at the bank at whatever it was then, Farmers Merchants probably. And of course we'd come in with our money all crinkled up and all that stuff, and Doris says, no, this is the way we're going to do this. You're going to bring the money in. It's all going to be faced one way, and it's not going to be crinkled up and stuff. So I still remember that. And when I was at the store, I still remember that she said that, you know. Scotty was always, you know, Scotty was Henry's, you know, he always gave Scotty McCormick. He was always down there, and you know, they kind of gave him jobs, and he was kind of trying to keep us aligned. Well, we maybe got out of line with old Scotty there for a while, but. So then, that's one thing. We had Sunday morning papers then. I mean, you get up at 5:30, and you go down. We had to fold the papers, and then my route, I had to make 4 or 5 loads with my bike because those papers were so heavy. I had 70-some customers. So the first Sunday I remember, it was summertime, and was it Grunzy, or is it Grunzy? Mr. Grunzy, I think, was the principal at the Lutheran school. And so, you know, I'd start out, we started probably by the time we got the papers all together, it's 5:45 in the morning. So on my second load, I had Reverend Strohschein on there. So I was getting ready to take the paper in or whatever, and I could smell breakfast, and I go, oh, geez, that smells good. All of a sudden I hear, Schlaefer, Schlaefer. I'm going like, yes? You're late. I'm going like, I looked at the Lutheran school clock, I can still remember that, it's 5:45, or Lutheran church clock, it's 5:45, I'm going like, okay. I says, I'm all done eating breakfast. So you know what we did? You know what I did? The next week I started out an hour early, just to take care of him. And then everybody's papers got done. So now we're at Rose's, at Parkside, Rose's, we always meet by the pop machine. 6:45 in the morning, we're all done. We're all done with our routes, we're all sitting there drinking pop and stuff. What are we gonna do here now? It's 6:45, I mean, but that's, you know, that's how you learn kind of the customer service. And then there was other ones, you know, you put the paper here and whatever. And then the same thing when I worked at the school. Gib Heavy, I learned so much stuff from him. The same maybe as what I taught kids. Maybe I learned that and passed it on. Gib Heavy knew how to treat us fair. that guy would work, I think he worked until he was 90. He just kept baling hay and everything, but he taught us, you know, you guys are gonna get this done and you're gonna behave yourselves and whatever. So I had him for 4 years and he was the best boss, you know, because he taught us how to work and stuff. And we were there to do like more of the grunt work, you know, for the other there were a couple other janitors there. And that's what, when you're 13, we could start at 13, there wasn't all these child labor laws. We were up on the roofs, we learned how to paint, we were spraying for weeds, we were painting and we were cutting lawn, we were tearing stuff down. But then we got it halfway through the summer, then we cleaned all the classrooms. And that's what we came in with, because we would lift all the heavy stuff and everything, and then you know, and there again, when somebody, back at them days, and you know, you were 50, 55, I mean, you know, you didn't have all the stuff you got now, knee replacements and hip replacements and all that stuff, so, you know, some of them, you know, why not? Let us guys do it, you know. And that was the best job. Summertime, worked 40 hours, 4 10-hour days. Now the child labor laws, that you would get fined for that. We would get fined. There was people that got fined when I was at the store, because if they didn't follow the labor laws, $6,000 to $7,000, you get fined. I remember one store got fined $7,000. And then, you know, the kids could only work like from 4 to 7 if you're under 16. Well, okay, they would leave at 7. And I go down to the bank, because I guess they made the laws so that the kids could be studying, right? Well, when I would take the money down to the bank, well, the kids are all, they're all over town. I mean, you know, and if I have never understood, well, if a kid wanted to work and make money, why don't you let them work and let the parents figure out if they're they know if the kid's gonna have trouble in school, whatever, you know? And if one of the parents said, hey, maybe cut back on their hours or something, and that's what we do. But, I mean, when I was even started there, I wanted all the hours I could get. I used to sit there and go, how come he's getting the hours and I want to get the hours? And then as I started managing down the road, it was almost like, how come I got to work all these hours and they only have to work 3 days? And I'm going, you know, the thing is back then, if you didn't do your job, really, somebody was there to take it. If they fired you or if they told you to go home, there was somebody to replace right there. And that's not, none of this, 3 minutes late was 3 minutes late. Now, then it got to be, they showed up, they're an hour and a half, they're an hour and a half late, but, oh, they're here. All right, you know. I mean, that's kind of the way it ended up, you know. And of course, I was one that, you know, I would tell them and warn them, and then I'd warn them, and then all of a sudden, if it was bad enough, I'd sit there and go, you're done. You're done. I didn't holler, didn't scream, whatever. Well, no, we had our talks. That's it, you know? And that's mainly because they weren't doing the, you know, I mean, they knew. They were just being lazy and stuff. And if you were caught stealing or whatever, that's all together another ball. That's a different ballgame, you know. So that's kind of my